But yeah, Maradona is the little monk, and San Gennaro is an ass-grabbing saint of Naples.
So Maradona helps creepy old men to grope women.
And slips money into their purse to help with fertility. Welcome to the Flick Lab. It's like, I don't know, a tumor that you can't remove.
It's Oscar Lab now.
It's Oscar Lab now. We're not sure how many Oscar episodes we're gonna do, but at least this one. We're gonna talk. Yeah.
Yeah, at least this one. Like last year during the Oscars, we made Parasite episode, and that turned out to be a whole flaming barrel of piss. But not on our end, but in a more general discussion. There was a whole record surrounding Parasite. So I guess we are tapping back on that horse once again and looking at the foreign films of the Oscar year.
Yeah, of course, it was not my intention to watch Parasite because it was an Oscar contender per se. Well, okay, that helped, but it's a goddamn great movie.
Most of the all the discussion and mostly what people had to say about Parasite last year revolved solely around it being nominated for the Best Picture.
Right. And now we're gonna discuss the two Oscar nominees out of 5 in this episode, The Hand of God and Flee, from Italy and Denmark, respectively.
Yeah, basically those two films that are the easiest to get your hands on to, because as it turns out, this year's Oscar nominees, at least when it comes to best foreign, are kind of ridiculously hard to actually get to see.
That is so absurd, Henrik. These are supposed to be the main contenders from these countries, the important movie that they want to sell, market their country and all that jazz. But for example, the Japanese contender, Drive My Car. Well, where do I drive that car? Where is it? I mean, it's been only doing circulations on these festivals, and I mean, yeah, that is shocking that you can't see this.
Yeah, I mean, even the Finnish film that wished that it would have gotten the nomination, Cabin Number 6, even that has been actually easier to see worldwide than Drive My Car.
Yup. And what could be behind that? Like, they really don't care about the distribution at this crucial moment? Or for sure, this will be more interesting for the winner, but I mean, come on, this is the time to sell those movies, if ever.
Precisely, and if the moment goes the way that even Finland manages to beat you in distribution, in that case, you seriously have done something wrong.
Yeah, and Henrik, we're gonna talk about our first documentary film. A long time coming. Well, we were never supposed to do that, I believe, but we kind of little bit talked about the documentary in the Syrian episode, and now we're gonna talk about seriously a documentary film.
Yeah, documentary has always been it's always been kind of in the background of our plans for future episodes on this podcast. We have been tossing around with the idea that we would do a documentary film episode, and then we just never actually did it, and we never actually decided what documentary we would have actually watched.
Main reason being skill. You would be useful to know something about the subject matter surrounding any documentary. And that is a big headache. I think even more background work than we would usually do for fictional products.
It would most definitely. And the second big question is that would be that what documentary we then would see. Documentary films are kind of a word of their own. A whole bunch of documentaries being made around the world globally, constantly. Even in Finland, we do a godless amount of documentaries every year. But then it's like a whole 9 yards of what documentaries you ever actually get a chance to see. Even like if you are Finn in Finland and you want to check out Finnish documentaries, most of the documentaries done in any given year are the types that you don't get the chance to actually see them anywhere. They just end up in circulation in festivals and in some small circles, and unless the Finnish national broadcasting station Yle manages to choose to pick up those documentaries, Yle also being the biggest producer of documentaries in Finland, like Yle is the only chance that you get a good, healthy opportunity to see any given documentary. And that's kind of a situation that repeats in every single nation, like French documentaries. Most of them you never actually see. Hopefully you, at best possibility, you get to see like a handful in a year. If you really have like make the effort that I'm gonna bloody well see some French documentaries this year. And with that in mind, mostly like when it comes to the smorgasbord of documentaries that we could talk about, that we could approach, it mainly would just be like the chosen hot ticket documentaries from US, like Blackfish or Michael Moore documentaries, or something like this. I mean, even today's film, Flee, which is the documentary that you alluded to just 5 seconds ago, even that is something that most likely we wouldn't have had the chance to see, except now that it's a contender for the best foreign Oscar.
Fortunately, a film that has been spread all over the services on the internet, so there's no problem accessing this one. So Denmark happened to do something right for one reason or another. All right, well, do we want to start with Flea or The Hand of God? I guess the Flea?
Yeah, Flea works well. Also known as, yeah, I too like Watch with Bashir very much.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I'm not gonna say that this is, like, I'm not blaming the film for anything. I'm not holding this against Flea, but everyone who is going to watch Flea is going to immediately draw a comparison to Watch with Bashir, which was the 2008 Israeli documentary film that also used the technique of having most of the documentary being drawn and then mixing the cartoon footage with a live action footage. Very much actually in the same vein that Flea does it. Like the live action footage that you have in both cases is archival footage. Except Flea's closing shot, the couple walking into the bushes, I would guess that that's a reconstruction. But that too is filmed in a way of like a 90s video camera, like the same quality. So at least pretends to be an archival footage. They both films use the archival footage for the exact same purpose. It's to break the wall between the movie and the audience. Since most of the documentary is done in cartoonish manner, it got kind of the usage of real footage then breaks this invisible wall between the movie and the audience. Not the fourth wall, but let's say fifth wall or seventh wall. And kind of helps to ground in the viewer's mind the fact that the story that the viewer has been watching is a real one. And both stories also revolve heavily around the topic of memory and memorizing the past. In Words, the memory is a mystery. The main character has this kind of a gap in his memories. There's time periods that he does not remember, and the movie follows him as he tries to put the pieces together and figure out what happened in that traumatic moment, which cuts to black. And in Words, the answer is the main character took part in well, not genocide, but partly genocidal violence. And in Flee, we are dealing with, the main character does not have amnesia, but the whole kind of a framing device of Flea is the fact that the main character's filmmaking friend is making a documentary about the main character's past. So he asks the main character to reminisce on what happened to him, like what was his childhood and how he got into Denmark. And then the main character starts to walk the past again. That forms the film Flea's story. So there are, like, once again, I have to stress this out. I'm not saying that Flea does anything wrong, and it's not like Watts with Brasir has like the sole right to use the drone imagery and kind of a play with the image this way. That's nowhere. That's not my point here. But like I mentioned, anyone who will see Flea will immediately think about Waltz with Pasir. It's kind of like unavoidable. Waltz was such of a tremendously huge thing when it came out 2018 that there's no way in hell that Flea can do that and not like that comparison not being drawn.
While also in the back of your head, you might remember many war or Middle Eastern related war documentaries of the recent years. The Return to Homs, which is not really about the refugees, but about the war in Syria itself. The film that we have today doesn't really hold that feeling of having watched something particularly new. We have heard these stories, and as heartbreaking as I may sound, like, yes, we have seen something like this before. It doesn't have that striking feeling that you get when you see something that you've never seen before. But on the other hand, yes, this film is very well executed. There's nothing wrong about it, right?
There's nothing wrong with it, and like I agree with you. Well, when it comes to Middle Eastern parts of the film, kind of like the opening beats of the narration, when the family has to flee their home, that kind of, like you said, not really striking. What actually struck me more was the part of the film that takes place in Russia and showcases perhaps once more the overall corruption and the brokenness of the Russian system. Like, to me, that was like the most gut wrenching moments of the film. And then it eases up when they finally, one by one, they get to escape from Russia.
Yeah, the time in Russia when the communism had officially just ended and a little bit after, so yeah, it probably was really tumultuous times. Yeah, indeed, from a refugee perspective.
And speaking of refugees, I strongly suggest, and once again, this is not something that I say that is wrong or bad, or I'm gonna hold this against the film, but I would make the case that this movie would not have been made. Like, the filmmakers would not have had the enthusiasm to see all this trouble to make this film without the 2014 2015 European refugee crisis.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
certainly it somehow partly influenced the how the project got going. I mean, it had been on the back of the head of the director Rasmussen for about, was it 15 years? But yeah, the refugee crisis and everything, it seemed to come together there. And then when finally the director got the idea in some event that, yeah, we could do this in animation, you know. So the person telling his story as a refugee wouldn't need to show his face or make some kind of a smudgy image or alter the, well, actually his own voice is in there, but yeah, he's able to remain quite anonymous by just using this animation, which, well, if I can already jump to it, is an interesting way, and you have to be so careful, right? So delicately animate this piece so that you do not get the emotions wrong, because that's a huge part. And actually, well, the director has said that the animation even enhances the feelings and makes it more cinematic, which is for sure true. But there is just a tiny little lining that if you would make it too much of a fantasy, accidentally even, you have to be pretty careful with those facial expressions, right? And the animation itself looks pretty interesting and so different because it's tied up to the clearly to the real footage that they have filmed. And so all kinds of random noises happen, people bringing their attention to things that are behind them and all kinds of this natural jazz. So what did you think about it? Did it kind of distance you or pull you in, or what happened?
For me, it did have that pulled me in effect,
Yeah.
and I was kind of taken away by the fact how well the film managed to sell a complex emotion, despite the fact that when it comes to the animation itself is pretty simplistic, and I don't mean this in the negative,
Mm.
but like the facial expressions themselves, they don't have that many lines. The faces altogether, it's few lines that form like the nose, the mouth, the eyebrows, the eyes. It's not like this super detailed. I'm gonna draw 5 million lines and use all of them to form an emotion. No, this uses like 20 lines to form a complex emotion, and that's actually pretty damn effective. And also, I'm surprised that they were actually draw it so well that they managed to have such a complex animation with so few lines.
And you've been really critical of animation in this podcast before, and I was interested to hear your thoughts on the animation. And yeah, it's kind of like more subdued, more realistic in a way. And then it also does this more fantastical or indeed like memory like shots where people are all smudgy or walking in the cover of darkness when there's snow hitting your face, and we just see some kind of blurry figures that are shaking in the foreground. So maybe increasingly as the film goes on, it becomes more blurry or dreamy, memory-esque. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I do agree with you. Then again, just to be the stable critic here and to say something mean about the animation once again, it did also at the same time remind me a hell of a lot about the cheap Euro comics that we have going on in basically all over EU, especially the EU mandated Euro comics.
Yeah, I will say something in the benefit of you. Like, never ever have I heard in this podcast you utter any kind of explicit praise. Like, you never hear you say, "I love this film from the bottom of my heart." And there's always something wrong, and you always keep the critical head. That's great. That's great. But yeah, I also, if you can say that, I enjoyed the Russia part quite a lot, and seeing the police behavior in that country quite horrifying. Sometimes you might think if all of these stories are true, or if indeed Amin recalls all of these events quite correctly. But yeah, and something that I felt that was knocking on my head when I was looking at this is kind of comparing this to some of the crazy stories that I've heard from kind of my friends who have been in, for example, in the Iraqi war. These are the kind of stories that they tell.
Yeah, and another huge part which I do believe plays into that effect or behavior is like, well, just the way how the film itself actually states it out, that in that situation you may actually have to like keep on repeating the same lie, much like Amin has to do ever since he eventually escapes or flees from Russia. He's given a false background, and this false story of his entire family is supposed to have died, just so that when he comes in eventually into contact with authorities, they would not send him back.
Yeah, that kept me thinking. Like, they had so many chances of getting sent back to their home country, but somehow miraculously survived these situations.
Which of course also has like the turnover effect. That, well, since Amin himself states that he is somewhat of an unreliable narrator throughout the film, like he promises that what he tells you now is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing to it. But at the same time, he also admits that he has been lying for the authorities, for his friends, even for his beloved ones for years before the documentary starts. Which once again raises the question, can we actually be 100% certain that he is telling the truth now?
Which
Or
was a
is this still for some reason yet another lie?
which was a moment of kind of pulling the rug under the audience's feet when he told to the audience that yeah, they are, my family is still completely intact, living all around Europe, not dead, not dead. So I kept thinking, okay, why? But I haven't maybe given this much thought before, but of course. And well, I have to wonder, like in asylum centers, how many of these officials are aware of the repercussions if they would kind of give out all the information about themselves? Because yeah, these people, these officials might talk about the fact that these are just unbelievable people, that you can't get to the truth with these guys no matter how much you try, and they are just, many of them are just liars, and that's it. But this film gives great context on that, why somebody would do that.
Yeah, and just so that we are not just shitting on people working on asylum centers. Another thing that has to be remembered is that even though the worker, him or herself, might be on the side of the asylum seeker and might know that yeah, this is guy who most likely has gone through some pretty horrible shit and is deserving of the refugee status and asylum, it might also be that the bureaucracy is of such that it just couldn't be given to the refugee. So it's not always, not every turned over decision and we are sending you back decision is not made out of spite or some type of I don't believe any of you goddamn liars type of logic. It might also be like I wouldn't want to do this, but I kind of have to because rules and regulations are what they are, and my hands are bound.
And those, for those people who might wonder sometimes, like why overwhelmingly often the refugees are male and not female. Well, yeah, here you can see why. It's an extremely dangerous road to take, and it's good to test the waters. No pun intended. First with the males, right?
Yeah, there is another factor which most likely plays a big role here is the fact that there's a kind of a long play going on where the end goal very much may be that we send like the first kid to another country. That kid will land a job, get some money, and help the rest of the family also. Like later on, like happens in Flea, that their oldest brother has been sent to Sweden, where he now works as a cleaner, just in order to gather enough money to basically be able to buy the safe passage for the rest of the family. So that's also one factor that plays here.
Yeah, absolutely. So suppose we are very much for the animation, how it was done, and many are. So in the end, well, let's spell it out. Did you feel the emotional connection with this film and the people in it? Because that's the huge part of the film that has to work.
I did.
Yep.
Of course, who feels and how much, that's a personal question. So I can't promise you that like I felt the most.
Yep.
I'm there with 100% feels.
Well, I have.
But yeah, the Flea did manage to win me over.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little strange sometimes how we treat these movies as some kind of just simple entertainment products, disposable pleasures, and we have something like Oscars, and then we have like 5 nominees this year, and we put them next to each other, stack them there, and then some critic somewhere says that, well, yeah, everybody was praising it so much, so I had huge expectation. I went to see it, and no, it wasn't as good as the other one that I saw. So I hope it doesn't win. I mean, come on, it's still like a person who came forward and told you like a traumatic life story for you, and now it's here being treated as some kind of a disposable object. And some part of me, though I understand that, some part of me just makes me a little bit sick in my stomach.
Again, there's a lot in Oscars that makes you sick in your stomach. That are the most overhyped and most meaningless movie award that you can have.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of that in these episodes. I believe Henrik has never been a big fan of the Oscars, and
I was like when I was a kid. I when I was a teenager, I even used to tape record the Oscar gala when it aired in Finnish television. I would record the gala and watch it from the tape the next day.
same.
But as time goes on, and I guess as I get older and older, I kind of just give less and less of a shit about Oscars.
What about the Golden Globes? At least, if there's something to be said about Golden Globes, I believe they're always before the Oscar ceremony, and then Oscars perhaps has kind of like a way to copy what has been happening in the Golden Globes. And maybe we should follow Golden Globes as well at some point.
Perhaps I don't follow Golden Globes. I don't even follow Cannes really. But when it comes to prizes and when it comes to nominations, I do actually put more weight on who wins the Golden Globe or
Right.
who wins Palme d'Or.
But perhaps like you, I'm utterly bored when I go to some web page and I try to read about some film, and like 67% of that page is, well, that's specific, but most of the article is just about how many nominations and wins this movie has garnered around the world, and I could not give less of a shit.
Yeah, basically what every movie's Wikipedia page is.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just scroll it down and you're going to like you're bound to meet the goddamn Excel spreadsheet about nominated, won, pending.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when there's no other material to speak of. It's literally just a put into sentences the Excel table of what this movie won, and it's unbelievable. It goes on for fucking several pages.
Yeah, basically like Flea's Wikipedia page. The plot synopsis is like 2 lines of text. Then you have like release information, which is 1 paragraph. Then you have like critical reception, which is like what Metacritic gave it or what Rotten Tomatoes gave it. And then you have awards and nominations, and it's just Oscars and spreadsheet.
Then again, we wouldn't be talking about this film if it had not received the exposure that it has. So there's the exposure part for good shit out there sometimes. And yeah, this was good shit. And something that the director said about the whole process is that indeed, when you create an animation, you put the movie together before you work on the animations. And with a documentary footage, you shoot the footage before you edit it. And there you become a slave to your footage, kind of paraphrasing. So it's,
Unless you are a Hollywood blockbuster and a Marvel feature film.
yeah, or if you have a subscription to Adobe stock.
We fixed the CGI in post, School of Filmmaking.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, you don't often get a situation in a documentary, unless it's like a super big production and you put CGI people all over the place. But, you have more leeway. You can get your close-ups that you need on the way. And yeah, that's kind of cool. Another thing, of course, is that you couldn't have really... It's really hard to tell this story in any other way except reenacting, which is kind of shit because you can't get to the locations anyway, and why not just make it more of like a memory and an animation. And once again, we are on the gay territory in this podcast. I'm fine with that, and I this wasn't my intention. I didn't even know what the heck Flea is really about, except something about a story about refugees. But yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, goddamn. Actually, I've been biting my tongue not to ask from you exactly how you felt about the fact that the film also on top of having like the refugee plotline, you also in the exact same main character you also have the LGBT plot going on. I started to watch the film and they hits the point where or immediately in the beginning of the film you understand that the main character is either a homosexual or then he's transsexual. And I
Yeah.
was immediately thought, oh yeah, this is why Karri picked this one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I have been doing my best not to ask you exactly how did you feel about the the gay subplot in Flea, because actually am not entirely certain. Was that perhaps even a bit too much? Like, you have the main character who is not just a refugee and not just someone who, well, is not an illegal alien, but whose legal status is based upon a lie, but who is also a homosexual.
Well, you think that the movie is going to have a lot of troubles by the end, but then again, I think it pretty well ties together the past, the whole storytelling part, and then the present day. And given that Rasmussen's goal and clearly the idea of the film is to tell a story of kind of a homelessness, the state of being or having home nowhere, the state of being a refugee, and it it is kind of like a homeless state and not being comfortable with yourself and having all these secrets and lies and all of this stuff bothering you and a relationship suffering for that, etc. But by the end, thematically, fortunately for the director, there was this thing going on where the couple was buying a new house in the middle of nowhere. Now, I don't know what is Amin's true thoughts still on that location, but he did settle there. There was I have to say there was a really long pause at the airport before they hugged each other. So, well, partly kidding, but anyway. So I think he got to the zone where he is comfortable about himself and has found hopefully a home in the middle of nowhere in Denmark. Don't you think that works thematically?
Well, now that you put it like that, yeah, I guess it works thematically. Mostly, I was just thinking that is this trying a bit too hard to make the case that you are talking about minorities and your main character is a member of a minority because he's a member of a minority of a minority. So the whole point, oh my god, look exactly how humane the refugees are, especially in a film that comes, post the European immigration crisis. I kind of was mixed. Do I like it or does it feel too much that the director is just pushing? Oh, look at the humanity! How can you hate these people? Look at all the minority cards playing around Gambit.
Oh, yeah. But I did like that there was this LGBT theme and found it even maybe overly impressive that the father of Amin was so forthcoming about the outage from the closet that he just took his son directly to the nearest gay club and here, enjoy. That was his acceptance speech. Or yeah, that's how he showed that this is not a problem. I wonder if that was the case, but I guess I shouldn't really question his story too much. I feel it's a little bit rude.
Yeah, with the way how basically the gay subplot in the end gets resolved, I too kind of did like it very much. It's kind of like me saying this now, it's kind of a repeating my point from our Han episode, but I do think that, well, since so many gay narratives in movies solely revolve around the theme how being gay is extremely dangerous, the whole world hates you, and it's immediate death sentence if anyone ever finds out. It's in my opinion, it's nice and it's even healthy to also get the other type of narrative, like you get in Flea, like you get in Han, where in the end the resolution is, yeah, we accept that, and there is no hatred.
Dear God, we really need Henrik. Let's do a lesbian film next. There's a little bit too much gayness going on here.
Well, Paul Verhoeven just made Benedetta.
There you go.
Yep. I'm all game. Christ. That Jesus me is already shrieking. But yeah, I'm all game for, doing Benedetta. And even doing more Paul Verhoeven. We haven't touched the dude on this podcast.
Well, you were looking for some easier episodes, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, I could babble on and on about this film, but I think that's what I really wanted to say. That's it.
I guess we have covered mostly our bases already.
Yeah.
And we still have one more film to go, so
yeah.
With extremely handy segue, let's go to the Hand of God.
Well, dear listeners, this is like the straight version of Call Me By Your Name.
I don't know if you are trying to kind of elevate the Hand of God, or if you are trying to downplay Call Me By Your Name.
It's not a comment on that, but there is a comment on quality level. And I guess we're going to talk about that as well, because Hannu, my friend Hannu Björkbacka, said that Paolo Sorrentino is the Paolo Coelho of cinema, and gave it half a star.
And while I don't hate the film that much, I can 100% see where that opinion is coming from. Like Paolo Coelho, however, writer, is a hot ticket writer who in the recent years he has garnered somewhat of a backlash for the way how his books are written, or what type of books he does write. There is this there's this Finnish meme that I once saw. It's like one of those moments where memes where you have the famous person's picture and then you have a quote, air quotations mark, a quotation from that famous person. So there's a Paolo Coelho version of that meme where the quotation is that roughly goes that I write this shit only to, or I write this flat shit mainly just to fuck with you. And that's a sentiment and take on Coelho's work. I haven't read the man's books, but from what I've heard and what I've gathered, that's a sentiment that I kind of can understand from where it stems from and how it formulates and I can actually see the exact same statement and the same mentality formulating around Paolo Sorrentino's films, or at least especially, The Hand of God.
The sentiment overall of Coelho, yeah, like you kind of put it, is that his products are kind of on the surface and don't really go all the way there, where it would be considered, proper art, that they take shortcuts and they are just really lazy ass material. I haven't read any of his books, but I will also say that I haven't seen any other movies from Paolo Sorrentino. How about you, Henrik?
Me neither. I do know of his films. I do know about This Must Be the Place and The Greatest Beauty, which were films that had a relative hype in Finland when they came out, and I have taken that even today enjoys some type of cult following. But I haven't actually checked those films out. So for me this is the first Sorrentino feature. More than that, this is the first Sorrentino product, an art piece for me, because I also completely missed on The Young Pope, which also was some type of a hot ticket TV drama show with Jude Law.
Yeah, so I really didn't feel that this is surface or pretentious or anything like that. Well, maybe to a degree I can see where that's coming from. But this is pretty rough, giving like half a star, letterboxed or not, because
it's rough, and the comment really fires off some shots.
right. So I mean, when I watched this for the first time some weeks ago, I wasn't blown away every part of the way, but when it got to the ending, I was ready to give it 5 stars on Letterboxd. So what is going on here?
I don't know, because I on my end, I'm willing to like meet the film halfway, like 2.5, maybe 3 stars.
Okay.
But that's about it. I do feel that I wouldn't say that the film necessarily is pretentious, but I do think that it is somewhat on the surface level side of things. And I do think that the film altogether has actually quite noticeably flat note. And I don't know if that's Sorrentino's style. Like I said, I've missed absolutely everything from the dude before the Hand of God, but I didn't hate the movie.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying, but the movie also just kind of didn't win me over.
Yeah. I felt that the caricature nature of the film in the first half or so is quite intentional, and you have to kind of run with the theme of, oh, everything is so picture perfect, and then contrast it with the darkness that happens after the deaths in the family. Spoiler, spoiler. And this is a memory, kind of in a way that Flea is. So I think you can take some liberties that these characters are so caricaturic, and it's just a collection of rich memories. It may not be exactly moving on the pace that you would like all the time, but it really just is. If you accept it as a collection of rich memories and kind of stop thinking about what is happening on screen in that sense, I think it works much better than for you expecting something dramatic to happen all the time, which might have been Hannu's problem. And Hannu, by the way, this is quite of a statement, also considering that this is the director's personal story, his autobiography, basically. So, of course, some elements have been changed here and there, but holy cow.
Are we? Are you sure that we wanna pick up fights outside of the podcast now, Alex? So
I'm not sure. I want to get
we are
away from this.
we are calling out this one opinion.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah, moving on from that. I couldn't resist.
Yeah. You mentioning the memory, like the cat's out of the bag. Finally, the whole big deal with the Hand of God, narrative-wise, is the meta narrative that goes hand in hand with the film. What you have in the movies is a narrative of one teenager's summer when stuff happens, and the twist here is that it's not stated on the film directly, but that this is the director revisiting that summer from his teenage years.
And same locations to an extent.
Yeah. So this is it's not documentary, but it's dramatizing a real event from the director's life. And on this sense, I kind of draw a parallel to Cinema Paradiso.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to the narrative building blocks and partly the framing also. Like in Cinema Paradiso, what you have is a person who works on film, has now grown older, comes back to his childhood place, relives some memories, and that's basically that's the framing device of Cinema Paradiso. And with the meta narrative of the Hand of God, you have a director who comes back to his childhood home, this childhood city, town, and through the act of making this movie, relives memories and moments from his past. In both narratives, the past somehow leads into the main character wanting to be working on film. In Cinema Paradiso, the main character becomes, was it producer or does he become a director?
Yeah, he wants to become a director.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Cinema Paradiso, main character becomes a director at the end. In The Hand of God, the main character becomes the director at the end. So even though I'm not saying that these are like the same film, obviously not. But with the meta narrative of The Hand of God, you kind of see the similar framework or the similar type of blueprint working around the movie itself.
I wasn't completely maybe blown away with that film in a way that sometimes I felt that it even was begging the audience that please respect me and see all this golden memory and just love me for it. It felt a little like that sometimes. I don't think The Hand of God is doing that, but anyway, I think there's a lot to be missed in this film, and I wonder if everybody is able to kind of understand all the points in the film. I sure as hell didn't, but I did some reading. I checked some essays on the film analysis. Well, I got even more confused. But I know what I saw in the film when I first watched it by myself. I wasn't as blown away on the second watch. Maybe I wasn't in the same frame of mind at all. But anyway, I think the film is asking what kind of like the flea question. Where is your home? Because sometimes you no longer feel that you are belonging to a place where you've been. And I think travelers understand this very well, or people who travel all the time for work that we have discussed in this Korean gay episode, also this whole thing. And, you know, and we personally, we have discussed that we have been moving all around Finland. I've been moving around a little bit more around Europe, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes when you get too familiar with your neighborhood, then it will become uncomfortable, kind of surrounded by all these uncomfortable emotions and memories. Even if something was once picture perfect, well, then when you continue living there after something horrific happened, or if it's just a collection of unfavorable events throughout your life, freaking living in the eastern part of Helsinki in a suburb for 20 years, of course there's always the good and the bad. Then you take a break from that environment and you might return to it, or you might leave from there for the reason that just the surroundings are haunting you. All those emotions and feelings come back again and again and again. And after a while, it gets really tiresome. Why do I have to fill my head with all of this noise when I could kind of start all over somewhere anew? A fucking theme that we have talked about in the elephant sitting still as well. So there is definitely the elephant element here. Everything went sideways in that film for the characters, and they all had the collective idea that, yeah, we gotta get the fuck out of here to search for something better. They may not find it, but hopefully they do. There's hope. And kind of Hand of God does the same thing. What do you think?
And just like with elephant sitting slash standing still, because god damn if the name wasn't all over the place with that film.
Did you check the internal email that we here it was also written elephant standing still, and I laughed. God, it's hard to get right.
I'm fairly certain that at some point the elephant was lying still also. But just like with elephant, once again I'm not actually blown away by the film.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, Karri, but The Hand of God, it's just like I don't hate the movie. That's not what I'm saying, but the film just didn't click. And I guess my main problem, because I don't wanna just just play the cop out and say that, well, something that I can't define just didn't work. I do try to aim at least a bit higher than that. So I would say that my main problem with The Hand of God is that I never actually ever felt the main character, or more specifically, I never actually felt that the main character did anything throughout the movie. In no way connecting with any of the elements that you have, or actually contributing in any way to the narrative of the movie. And partly, I do understand why this is. This is the director revisiting his own life, and most of our lives are not like they don't work like film narratives where you make super important choices and you kind of can see how I did this so it led into this, etc., etc., etc. Most of our lives consists of basically just stuff that happens to us and us somehow like responding to what has happened. And especially in this case, when we are dealing with the main character's teenage years, and teenage years being the time period when most of us are lost, we don't know what we want to do, we don't know what we want to achieve, we have no idea what we actually want in any way, in any area, and we just feel like we are isolated and separated from absolutely everything, and the world is just something that revolves around us. So I do get, like, I'm not saying that the director fucked up and just somehow accidentally made a main character that does not contribute. It most definitely it was a stylistic choice, but at the same time what we have is a main character that does not truly contribute into anything. There is no one thing that the main character actually does that has some type of effect. The effects that play out in the movie's narrative are something that just happen around the main character and happen completely oblivious of the main character. Like take the smuggler character, for example.
Yeah.
Main character sees the smuggler once, then meets him at the football game, then has a night out with the smuggler. The smuggler then does not answer the main character's call. The smuggler lands in jail. Nothing is in any way a result of something that the main character has done, not on emotional level and not on physical level. And also the another like the major plot point that happens in the film, the death of the parents, the main character has absolutely nothing to do with it, doesn't actually strike him to do anything, except perhaps at the end of the film when he meets the movie director. And the director says our main character that stay here, stay home. How can you look at all this around you and say that you don't find narratives? We should team up, we should start to make movies. And that's the moment when main character actually finally somehow reacts into something that is being said or done to him.
Yeah.
And he does exactly the opposite that the director dude says. The director dude says, don't go to Rome, or the assholes go to Rome. The film ends up with our main character taking a train to Rome.
There's so many things that you just said and went through. But I agree that the relation with the smuggler was not engaging. Like, half of the movie I was wondering who the hell is this guy and why is this so important or isn't, as it's a memory and you can do everything, right? But I think that the director, whatever he does in this film, is extremely intentional. It's another matter than does it work for us? Do we connect with that? Does it make sense to the audience?
Oh yeah, it's most definitely it's intentional.
Yeah.
And my problem with that intention is that it won't work for me, at least not in this film in particular.
Yeah, I noticed that there is this still that feeling that you're trying to identify with these characters, and especially the lead character, and kind of find the core. And for like the first half of it, it's just events happening, like you said, around the character, and the character is kind of in the center, but isn't in the center. It's a collection of people, and that is intentional as well, for sure. And he kind of becomes more central after the tragedy. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't side with you on the statement that he becomes more central. Like I said, the main character did not click with me, and I never felt. I also didn't feel that he somehow becomes more central or he becomes more participating in anything that happens in the film.
Yeah, yeah, everything just revolves around him for the most part. I do agree with that. I wonder if
I,
that's the reason that the movie feels a little weird.
I would say that that's the main that would be the main reason why the film feels well in a lack of better word
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that that feeling may also be be the reason why some people just really don't like this movie, because I didn't like that feeling. I was constantly just almost yelling at the screen and yelling at the main character to do something, to react to something. At least he partly reacts to the fact that his parents die. Like you don't get a strong reaction, but at least you get something. Like it sparks him to have a discussion with his older brother at the very end of the film that they should start doing plans and start think what they want to do with their lives. But that is followed by the discussion with the director, where the director point blank asks our main character that what you want to do, what is your passion, what drives you, what you want to achieve. And the best answer our main character can give is, I don't know, maybe movies. And once again, I get it. It's a teenager. He's a teenager. You don't have those answers when you're a bloody teenager. I do get it. But at the same time, we are stuck with a main character whose best answer to the whole question, what you want to do in a film that is supposed to center around him, and the best answer he can give is, I don't know.
Yeah,
And it's just as aggravating as it is to talk to a teenager in a real life, when you actually try to have a conversation with the bastard and you try to ask what you want to do, what you want to achieve, what you want to become, and the answers are, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah, the moment when he meets the director is definitely a kind of defining moment. He has been talking about becoming a director, and now even more so because he feels determined with that because he's now an orphan and reality is lousy, as he says. So he wants to pursue fictional stories instead, to kind of get over it and change the environment around him. He wants to go to a different city. The director at the same time makes a good point. You know, do you have fucking anything to tell? Do you have a story? And then he finally says, I do have a story, but the story's kind of lame. What was it?
Yeah, even he can't actually tell what his story is. He may just give a couple of plot points.
Yeah. And the director has kind of a point. Like, I think what he's trying to say as well, what I thought, what I felt anyway, is that now that you are here in this shithole town, as described by the old lady with the giant pussy, um, I think this is a moment where Fabio can decide whether he's gonna stick with the town and just get over it and change his mindset, and via this changing of his mindset come up with these stories. I mean, even if you're in living in the suburbs of Helsinki, Kontula, whatever, you definitely can make creative stories about Kontula. So you can find the beauty or the ugliness, whatever emotion you're seeking from whatever place you're in usually. So, but that would have been an interesting way to go. Just stick with the place and try to adapt into this new situation as an orphan. But yeah, the kind of the actions and the motivations from the point of view of telling a really cohesive and easily understandable story, it's maybe not always there. It's very much also to this individual interpretation, how you feel, I guess. Anyway, he decides to leave his city and is on the way to what is the shithole place that he is heading to next?
Rome.
Rome. And yeah, I suppose he takes the train to Rome. I'm not sure if he's going to be a director anymore, or he just gave up that idea because that asshole director said all the things that he does not believe in, and also the thing that his parents left him. And I felt that that was the moment that he said to himself, like, look, that there is nobody who can tell me what is the right answer or what I should do with my life. Maybe I just have to decide it on my own and not listen to other people. They can never understand my situation. So just feel what feels right for me, right?
But speaking of pussies,
Speaking
and
of
listening other people on what you should not do, you know.
well, that also an interesting plot point in the film. all this lead character's fascination with older women.
Especially his goddamn aunt.
Yeah, but
The fuck?
But hey, Auntie was there only to help to get over the first time, right? Just giving him a service, and now he
No,
is.
no. I mean.
Oh yeah, the Patrizia.
I mean Patricia, the one lady that gets perved the most in this film. The woman who is so mentally ill that she just can't keep clothes on.
But that's another thing. Is she mentally ill, or is it more like, for example, in the beginning of the film, it's depicted in a way that it's not reality. It's some kind of a memory or hallucination of the lady, or whatever the hell it is.
Well, she might not be mentally ill, and I most definitely, oh god, do I hope that that's not really the point. Because stating that sexually active women are just mentally ill is kind of a, well, fucking yikes. But it still does not remove the fact that every character in the film constantly qualifies Patricia as someone who is mentally ill, and at the final moments with Patricia, she eventually gets locked up in, I guess, some type of a mental health clinic.
Yeah, but there was one critic that said that maybe the behavior as we see of the woman in the film is not really what happened, but would be more of the memory of Fabia. Okay, this is getting into like really maybe ridiculous level of deep reading. But it could be also like the reactions of the woman. Maybe it's not that Patricia really cares for Fabia in any way or is even sexually attracted, but it's just the way that Fabia remembers it. But nevertheless, she is in the asylum.
Yeah, but here's another critic who will state out that it was somewhat irritating that every single female, every woman character in this movie, in the end of the day, only serves to preserve and strengthen the sexuality of the main character. Like every woman in the movie, except the main character's sister, who constantly locks herself in the bathrooms, even to such of a length that I guess at the end she locks herself in the bathroom for weeks, for a month, and the movie completely forgets her until in the like at the very end when she finally emerges from the bathroom.
And is crying like a baby.
But that sister notwithstanding, basically every female character in the movie is in service of basically proving the sexuality of the main character. Like Patricia is there so to show some tit, and for the main character to be perving on her. The one lady who is with the sheik is there just so that the main character can point out, hey, nice lady, and be caught on, on that behavior. The granny on the upstairs, she's like the most clear example of this, because at the very end her only reason basically to exist, like her function in the story, is that she takes the main character's cherry, his virginity, just so that the first time is now over and done with, and the next time the main character can finally actually have sex with someone that he truly likes. So like I'm like doing this service to you so that you can go around and fuck women. And I'm just kind of looking at the film and being like, Paolo, the fuck are you doing?
everything in the end revolving around the main character, sexually at least. And
I mean, I guess that's the main reason why he goes to Rome. It's not to become the next hotshot director. He just realized that there are more women that he hasn't yet fucked or perved upon that are not his sister.
Yeah, well, Soren, just a correction for the earlier. Well, if this is indeed very autobiographical story of these moments of the director, then of course the director would become the director in Rome.
Yeah, and most likely this is seeing how the director also made the documentary about making the film The Hand of God, which is also on Netflix. It lasts like 8 minutes, and it's just the director just walking around, his own hometown, old hometown,
Yeah.
Just looking at stuff like the statue of Maradona and explaining like, yeah, Maradona is hot shit around here. And that's a whole goddamn documentary. It's its own separate thing, and it's on Netflix. It lasts for 8 minutes, and he doesn't actually say anything about making of the film.
Yeah, you mentioned the Maradona thing. Maradona, who was ready to sue the filmmakers for using the title, but then he was ensured that no, this is not a football documentary. We're doing something completely different. Kind of funny. What about the little monk character? Did you figure out what the heck is going on with that?
No, it's some type of like a cinematic element that just comes full circle. He's at the beginning of the film. We have a little monk that serves no purpose whatsoever. This is like the most fantastical element of the film. It reminded me a lot about the of the dwarf on Don't Look Now, which is a horror movie. And that's what I mostly was thinking when the little monk appears. And I can't actually figure out what the hell was the little monk's function in the movie, or what the hell was actually going on in the beginning of the movie. Like, we have, in the beginning, we have the most complicated setup a man can ever have, just so that he can grope some lady's ass.
Yeah,
and then the little monk makes a reappearance at the very end of the film, and when he shows up at the train platform and is waving at our main character. They don't know each other. The little monk does not know what the main character is, has never seen, but there he is. He's waving goodbyes to the main character.
Yeah, I was watching one analysis of this to figure out what the heck is going on with this plot point with the little monk, and it turns out that the little monk in the end could be like a little Maradona, some kind of a symbol of perseverance. After all, the title is the Hand of God, related to the goal that Maradona did by hand in 1983 in some tournament for those people who care about football. And yeah, so it turns out that San Gennaro, the creepy guy in the car coaxing the lady into that ass-grabbing meeting,
is also Maradona.
He's a reference to religious stories, folklore, and mythology in Naples. And that San Gennaro apparently was a patron saint of Naples, respected by the people of the town, seen as a very respected protector of the community, kind of a powerful champion and universal helper. And that's
So
why,
is the film trying to say that religion uses Maradona to grope women?
you know, I've told you these themes are really confusing. Cohesive narrative would be nice in a way. It's too much to your own interpretation. But yeah, like I said, the reason why I was so crazy about the film on the first go, at least, was that I guess I was in that kind of a state of mind, just remembering how things have happened to me and how I feel that I don't really belong particularly anywhere. That's what I got the most about the film. Being in Poland, being in Spain, and now the kind of detached about Spain as well. Yeah, and that's what I felt that the character was going through. There had been some happy moments, feelings on community and friends around you, and then all of a sudden that all changes. It's kind of from my book. But yeah, Maradona is the little monk, and San Gennaro is an ass-grabbing saint of Naples.
So Maradona helps creepy old men to grope women.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, now I got it. Good to have that one cleared out.
And slips money into their purse to help with fertility. I have no idea. I tried. My brain was frying when I was trying to understand that.
Yeah. The ghost of Maradona. If you ever listen to this episode, please come to our Facebook page and send us a comment how often you slip women's purses after creepy old men have been groping them. That's.
Oh. Hey, well, what about all the innuendos? Not even so much innuendos, but the negative comments towards disability and Wait. The whale has submerged. Happy summer memories all together in one. and
I can't make those comments anymore in modern Finland.
yeah, I was quite shocked. Yeah, ha 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 ha. and a
Fat
guy
lady is fat.
and an older guy with the, how do you call it, voice box. That was super funny in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly uncomfortable.
It was tad bit. I was perhaps a bit more distracted by the way how basically every female gets treated in the film. But yeah, I did also pay notice, especially to the fat shaming that happens in the film. And once again, yeah. It's true that when it comes to body positivity, when it comes to like facing people with disabilities, the 80s were less defined times than what we are living now. So of course, with those attitudes, and with especially with all the fat remarks that get thrown around, yeah, they are something that did happen and did exist on 80s. So they are like they are believable and kind of a acceptable depiction of how the times were back in those days. At the same time, it's also a good indication of exactly like the little ways that we also have come forward from the 80s and perhaps a bit more considerate and bit more civilized.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions in the film. You kind of cramp them up into the first hour and you kind of fall through the floor into this grief. But yeah, there's a mixture of things that kind of try very, very, very hard for the audience to identify with the film. And I'm not saying that these things didn't happen. Like I listed a bunch of adjectives. Sorry, Zach. Adjectives. Pain, pleasure, laugh, joy, beauty, ugliness, rudeness, obsession, love, hate, death, grief, shame, lust, abuse. They're all there. So, yeah. What about the speaking of, how should I describe this? Joy. Signora Maria crying in the elevator. And all these completely unexpected, hysterical moments, rather, drawing a dick on the elevator mirror at the time of grief.
I mostly that's once again when it comes to how people with disabilities were treated in the 80s. And well we are partly once again in the yikes territory of things, because the thing with Mario is that he
Looks like Super Mario.
looks like Super Mario and is autistic or something. He's on some type of spectrum. I'm not entirely certain what spectrum that is, but it's clear that he is on one of them. And once again, with Mario also, Mario is kind of character who doesn't really contribute into anything except he makes a couple of funny quotation mark scenes because, well, just like the way how the fat is fat, the retard is a retard.
Maybe, but there's also another unexpected moment after they have just heard that the parents have died in the carbon monoxide incident. Was it intentional? What happened there?
I took it that it was unintentional and it was a result of the fact that the goddamn dumbnuts parents did not know how to operate a fireplace. Like you're
Yeah,
supposed to open the like the slab that closes off the chimney. You're supposed to open that before you light the light in the fireplace. And my guess is that since the family lived in a skyrise building, they did not live in a private home. They did not have a fireplace, so the dumbnuts did not know this. So then they light the fire and accidentally suffocate themselves.
right. But coming back to the comical moments of the film, yeah, just after hearing the bad news there at the parking lot, grieving, there's this snobby little bastard. The kids call him a fuckface and have a little bit of a unexpected laugh about it. So I think these comedic switches were great fun. and so unexpected. The best laughs of the film, and kind of brings the kind of the levity to the film that we're dealing with these serious topics, and then you can just switch it. Should try that in real life, just drawing dick pictures in elevator mirrors.
Yeah, that's a recommendation that does not come from on behalf of the podcast.
Oh,
Just putting the disclaimer out there.
oh, suit yourself. Okay, yeah.
Vandalize public property by drawing dicks. Yeah, I'm gonna skip that one, man.
Yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha. Well, I don't know. Should it be the quickies then, or whatever they're called today? Well, special mention for an actor goes to.
Well, from my end, it goes to drawing as a visual style in filmmaking.
Is that an actor? Yeah, I guess it is.
I don't know, but that's my pick.
To be honest, well, since we're doing our first documentary, well, I mean, I don't mean this in any negative sense, but freaking hell, I'm just gonna give it to Amin. Not saying that you're acting, bro, but well done performance. It's a performance, right? Can I say that?
Yeah, certainly. Why not? I mean, it is a film still,
Yeah.
and there is voice acting and all that jazz. So.
Yeah. Well, let's give it to the animated version of Amin. Bring to attention some very small role in the film that you found somehow worth highlighting for whatever reason. It could even be an extra on screen for half a second performance, could be great, horrible, fun, odd, etc.
It's teenage angst. It does not know where it's coming from, and it does not know where it's going.
Right. I'm gonna give it to the waves at the coast of Italy. Hitting a blank here. What resonated with you the most, the least?
For me, it's the most, and it would have to be, and this is something that I will keep repeating tonight, it's the drawing style of Flea.
I will give it to the smorgasbord of emotions of the Hand of God. God damn it, you can't really easily grab this film and tell what's going on all the time. In one adjective, how would you describe these films?
Memory, all alone in the moonlight. Yeah, I can't sing for shit, but it's memory.
Yeah, I think that was one note.
I don't know if that was even half a note. There's a reason why I don't do karaoke. And self-preservation is precisely the reason.
It's not an adjective, but memorylicious. I throw my hands in the air.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's even a word, but
you can now add it to Merriam-Webster.
Quite good in this panic, I must admit.
A favorite quote.
I don't actually have
one. From Flea, from the father, I believe. I'll make real men out of you when you get to Sweden. I just had to.
I took the film way too seriously to actually notice how stupid that sounded.
Sorry, had to do it.
Well, it's Sweden and Swedes deserve it.
Do you think these films have any staying power legacy?
I do think that Flea will have it. It's partly the legacy will come with everybody drawing comparison to Wars with Bashir and Bashir being such of a well-known name. So Flea will have a legacy in somewhat of a mirror piece of Bashir. I believe that. When it comes to Paul Coelho.
Hellhole?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the man enough to actually be able to answer this question. He might have, like the director might have a legacy, and it might be this must be the place and the eternal beauty, or what was the another hot ticket film. Who knows? Maybe Hand of God will also. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain the least.
Yeah, the Hand of God, probably not Sorrentino's best work, or maybe it was too autobiographical for its own good, in a way that the interpretation is all yours. What was the question again? Staying power, legacy. Yeah, maybe the Hand of God, not so much. And I would even say the Flea, not so much, because it's going to be shadowed a bit by other similar products. Well, put the films in order of preference. And that makes no sense. But yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a pointless question, kind of obvious at this point of today's episode, but yeah, it's Flea and it's The Hand of God.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I gotta agree with you. Okay, complete some sentences. You really know you're watching the films. When?
When you realize that Rome is just full of assholes because an old man told you so.
When you are looking for home. Ah, that didn't have any good joke in it. But did you like the films?
I did like Flea quite a lot, and I was okay with The Hand of God. I didn't like. I want to stress this out. I don't hate The Hand of God. I today from the two films that we have been talking about, I have been most critical of The Hand of God, but I'm not like. I'm not joining the naysayers, the complete naysayers who say that the film is garbage and absolute trash, but I'm also in no way blown away by it. Like I said, it's for me it's 2.5 star, 3 at most. It's a movie that once we hit something like the 150th episode, if you're gonna ask me like what's my take on The Hand of God, I'm gonna ask like what film was that? Not gonna remember the movie most likely in T minus X episodes.
Well, that's the straight version of Call Me By Your Name, man.
I do say Call Me By Your Name had more of a plot and had more of a characters that did interact both physically and emotionally with things in the plot.
For those people who are confused about that comparison, well, I think it's pretty clear in the presentation of the idyllic location and so that kind of a perfect paradise.
Yeah, and both films has a character that sticks his dick in a peach.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned it. Did I like the films? Yeah, I did like both of them. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it. Would you watch these films again? Yes.
I most likely will be checking out Flea at some time. Perhaps even showing it to others. Not an obvious one. Like I'm not guaranteeing that. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the DVD player whenever I have host guests. It's not like Apocalypse Now or Blade Runner or some other films that are like I'm gonna really push that everybody would see these films at least once in their lifetimes. But perhaps in some discussion I may like show Flea. Most likely I will be checking it out a second time with the Hand of God. No, no, one time is enough for me.
Mm. Yeah, pretty much. So, would I recommend the films? I would recommend the films. Ooh, several words of cautions with the Hand of God. It's. I don't think it's for everybody. Even to some extent, I'm surprised that we're even discussing these films in this episode as like an Oscar nominee out of all the shortlisters. There were some interesting stuff there, but all right. Try it, try it. Flea, yeah. But would this really, Henrik, be the kind of films that you just go to a buddy on the street, like, yeah, watch this? Flea, yeah. If you're into this whole Oscar phenomena, then I guess so, yeah. Maybe not so wild about recommending these. Not to say that they are not great films in their own rights.
Yeah, Flea. In fact, when you compare these two films, Flea lasts for 90 minutes, and The Hand of God is something like over 2 hours, like
Yeah.
2 hours and 11 minutes or something like that. And Flea manages to have more character and tell more story in the 90 minutes than what Hand of God can do in over 2 hours. Well, that at least was my experience with the film. And when it comes to like if we would like throw in our 2 cents, like make our predictions on how the Oscars will go, I would say that Flea does have a higher chance of winning the Oscar. I'm not gonna say that Flea is a certified winner, especially since I haven't yet seen the three other nominees. But from these two, I would say that Flea is more certainly gonna win Oscar. I don't see Hand of God winning the Oscar. And if it somehow turns out that that the statue goes to Hand of God, in that case, I must say that I don't agree with the academia.
Right, that would be kind of a wild card in my books as well. Okay, so we've covered 2 out of 5 of the best international feature nominees. Yeah, for example, South Korea was dropped this time around. But Drive My Car has gotten a hell of a lot of praise. It seems like it's the one that people are praising at the moment, and that's probably the winner if you ask from the general audience. We'll see. We've got Drive My Car, The Worst Person in the World, and Lunana, a yak in the classroom to go through. What did you think, dear listener? Come and comment on our socialistic media pages Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Where's our next adventure taking us, Henrik?
Yeah, it might be, the rest of the Oscar nominees in the case that we actually can somehow manage to get our hands on the remaining 3 movies. But I guess we see in the fortnight.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to add, or is it time to close the memory books?
I think we, at least for the time being, we can close the memory books. As hard as CGI effects closed on Cats, the musical film.
Yeah, and what did you think? Leave us once again the message on the social media and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. It helps others like yourself to find our podcast. We've also started a Patreon a while ago now. Head on over to patreon.com/theflicklab to support us there. Lots of great content and opportunities to help us out there. For example, there will be the episodes that we release about 1 week in advance, and we'll be releasing some more extra content in the future. You can send us feedback the old-fashioned way, I suppose, lab@theflicklab.com. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you can get my handle correctly, if you can write my name correctly, good luck with that. Henrik, where can people find you?
People can find me from the memory. Yeah, I still can't sing for shit.
Right. Our theme music created by Nick Grivell, editing by me. That's the package for today. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in a fortnight.
Until then.
Yeah, ha 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 ha. and a
Fat
guy
lady's fat. Ha ha ha. Woof. Woof. Woof.